Okay, the first thing I want you to do is if you go inside of Canvas and go to where it says Files, you'll see something in here. Let me go back you'll see something that says Myers Media. And you have a bunch of other stuff in here that we're going to deal with at another time. But if you go into Myers Media, you'll notice that there's a bunch of things to download here that we can work with. And for our first assignment, I want you to download this one called Spaceman. Okay, you're going to download, it's that guy here, and just up here you're going to hit download. It goes into your downloads folder. And let's go ahead and close that out, and then we'll go into After Effects. Okay, so now we are in After Effects. What I want you to do is if you go to File, Import, as I showed earlier, we go to our Downloads folder, and I'm going to find that Spaceman, and I'm going to import him into the project. And now this project has something called an alpha channel, and we're going to be dealing with that quite a bit, but an alpha channel represents transparency. So I will show what that means in a minute, but for now, when you import this one, it has an alpha channel, and so you're going to just say straight unmatted. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're going to again create a new comp. You can do it over here, or you can say composition new. I'm going to just do it from it down here at 1920 by 1080, and I'm going to call this Spaceman. I'm going to change the frame rate to 23976. This is the duration of this thing. It's 5 minutes long and 18, so that's excessive for what we're going to do. So let's just say I'm going to make it 18 seconds and 2 frames for now. Okay, and so there's nothing in there right now. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this Spaceman, I'm going to drop him in here. And so an alpha channel, as you can see, that all those checkers back here are telling you that this is, there's transparency here. So if I took something else and put it behind it, let's import another thing. Let me just go in here and just take any kind of movie that I happen to have in here. Let's just go ahead and take this, I don't even know what it is. And I'm going to drop that on the bottom beneath it. And you'll see that this is transparent, and our Spaceman is now sitting on top of these two young ladies. But I don't need that, so I'm going to get rid of that. But if you need to fill the background with something, let's go back into the Myers Media once again. And if you look underneath here, let's see star fields. We're going to download this as well. Okay, so let's go ahead and click on this. All right, that's what we're going to have our Spaceman flying into. So we're going to download that. Okay, we'll close it, go back to After Effects, and now we're going to import from downloads that star field. Okay, so we're going to take that star field and we're going to put it beneath it. Now, since we're working at 1920 by 1080, notice when you click on these different things, up here it's showing you what are the parameters of that particular file. So this star field loop is 720 by 486, and it's a QuickTime movie. It gives you some information over here. And this one is telling me that that one was 1920 by 1080. But I want to use the star field one, and it's too small. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to come down to the star fields. I'm going to twirl it down here, go to transform, and here where it says scale, notice that you have these blue areas here. And look what happens to the cursor. When I put it over the cursor, it turns from an arrow to a little hand. So if I click and drag that, I am now increasing the scale of this particular file. Okay, so there's a little watermark here, and I want to get that watermark out of there. Okay, and so now what I've got is the Spaceman. If I hit play, again, watch the green line. So now this is showing me real time. Okay, so now the video ends here, so notice that this is the ending of the video. I want to reiterate, this is not an editing software like Adobe Premiere. It's a compositing visual effects piece of software. So it's not going to behave the way Premiere behaves. So if you're not familiar with this software, it's going to be a little frustrating at first because it's not going to do what you think it should do based on your experience with Premiere. But what I want you to do is to understand keyframes. And so what we're going to do is we're going to animate the Spaceman. Now, do you see this little blue thing here? And there's one at the very end as well. This is called your workspace. And what we want to do is we want to change the workspace to just be the length of, let's say, this star field in this situation. So if I hit the letter N, that changes the workspace to be wherever that playhead was sitting. Okay, and you can also drag it left and right by doing this. And by holding in the shift button, it's going to snap to that little clip right there. Okay, so now if I hit play, it's going to just play until it gets to the end. And I'm just going to it's going to keep looping over here so you can kind of see what it's doing. So just understand, the more and more layers that you put on here, and I'm going to twirl this back up because it's not uncommon to have 40, 50 layers in here. It's going to take a long time to render, and you're not going to be able to watch the whole thing in one sitting. So you might have to make a workspace. You know, maybe the workspace is this big, and you're only working on this little piece right here. So you have to do it in increments, because chances are when you get very, very in-depth in After Effects, you don't have enough memory to do the kind of things in real time. Okay, so what I want you to do in this first assignment is I'm going to click on the Spaceman. Okay, and now that is selected, I can move him around. Okay, so he can go all over the place wherever I want him to go. And what I want to do is I'm going to put him outside the frame. I'm going to twirl down, and I'm going to transform the position. So you have these little stopwatches. These stopwatches are going to tell you that you are going to activate animation. So I'm going to turn on this stopwatch, and now it turns blue. And notice what it did is it created a keyframe right over here. So this isn't really where I wanted that keyframe. So I'm going to delete that. I'm going to put the keyframe at the beginning of the timeline. So wherever the playhead is where that keyframe is going to happen. So I'm going to turn on the stopwatch again, and notice that it made a keyframe right there. A keyframe is just identifying where it is on this screen at the moment. I'm going to move it in time, meaning I'm going to move the playhead in time to the end of this. And now I'm going to change the position to be, let's say I want it over here. Okay, so once it's in the frame, I can then move it maybe off frame. Right now it goes from there to there. Each one of these dots represents a frame. So what's going to happen is, now that I have two keyframes, 1, 2, this is the starting keyframe, this is the ending keyframe. When I hit play, it travels through space to that second position over there. Okay, and that is the basic of After Effects. You create two keyframes or more keyframes, and I'm going to create another keyframe. So take a look at where the playhead is right now. The playhead is sitting right there. Now I can create a new keyframe by just moving the thing. Let's say I move him over here, and so notice he's now going to take this motion path is going to be moving from there to there. So let's take a look at that. Okay, and you can speed all these things up and change them around, and you can have as many of these keyframes as you want.